The way I like to think about this talk is, I sent it to Rob and Sonia ahead of time, is I said, this is about as close to religion and politics as I think we get here. Because there are some kind of personal beliefs and biases that I'm going to share, but I think this is the message that you all and I need to hear. This is not the message that you might want, but I think this is the thing that we all need. And this is not all good, just to kind of preface it. But there is the silver lining at the end. And so in MicroConf tradition, this is my why. We're all here for a reason. This is my family. When I very first started listening to the podcast and following Rob, we were only 3. And now we're 4, and my son on the right here is taller than me. So 13, 15-year-old kids and my wife Amanda. This is why I do everything I do, right? To make as much money as possible and have as much freedom as possible so I can do things with them. And so I think as we talk about this really sensitive subject, I want you all to keep your why in mind, because I think it helps us frame what's going on in our lives with AI and SaaS a little better. So that's it. I told Rob this is going to be a quick talk. No, I do think some of us are in big trouble because of AI. I think to ignore this, and this is the part that I think you need to hear, is me not doing justice to y'all, because I'm just like y'all. So Castos, my SaaS business, been doing it for 8 years. I am worried a lot about what's going on with AI and the longevity of my business. And I wouldn't lie to you and say that I think it's all just like sunshine and rainbows, because I think it's not. And if you assume that the next 8 years for me or 10 years for y'all, or where's Harry? 20 years, right, maybe? Yeah? Are the same, I think you're lying to yourself. And so I'm going to walk through kind of why I think some things are different and will never be the same, what we can all do to protect ourselves and our businesses and our whys against the things that are coming, and then how we can lean into and take advantage of these to be productive and proactive and take advantage of the biggest technological shift I think I've ever seen since the internet. Because the fact is, SaaS is greatly affected by AI. And it's not just SaaS, right? And it's not just tech that's disrupted by AI. And it's not just our jobs. I think we all have jobs, right? But it's not our roles in our companies or jobs in general. I think it's the whole economy. And if you pay attention to the news, this shouldn't be a surprise. So this is about 2 months old, the beginning of the SaaS apocalypse. This big drawdown, $285 billion of equity erased from the markets. Anybody remember this? Why did this happen? This was as a result of a blog post by Anthropic about a bundle of skills in the legal space. So a blog post erased, $300 billion in stock market valuation. Whatever. You might think people in the public markets are idiots, I think sometimes, but not that much. They're not that wrong, I don't think. And so when things like this happen, I think we should pay attention and generally kind of be aware of what's going on. This is a pretty cool looking graph, I think, right? It's what is it like? What do you see when you see this graph? This is one of those dreamscape things. So this is a pretty cool graph, again, by Anthropic. And again, they're really good marketers, right? We're going to talk about some of the stuff they're doing later and why you maybe shouldn't pay attention. But this is, in the blue, potential disruption of jobs by AI, by job type, right? So up top, management, business, finance, developers. And then the red is what's been actualized already. And so if I can come over here and see my notes, 94% of jobs could be replaced. And so far, less than a third have been. And we've seen layoffs every week, right? And so This is from Andrej Karpathy, one of the co-founders of OpenAI. All of the red here are jobs who will be negatively impacted by AI over the course of the next few years, with a score of like between 1 and 10, between 7 and higher. And this is $3.7 trillion of wages that could be lost. So is this like everybody happy? Everybody like, yeah, this is fucking great. Like, I can't believe we're ending the conference on this. There's just one more. The iShares ETF that tracks SaaS generally down 30% in the last 6 months. Told you this is like what I think we all need to hear. But like, hey, we're entrepreneurs, we're founders, we've like seen this stuff before, right? So yeah, web frameworks, Laravel, Ruby on Rails, Next.js, Django made everything easier for us, right? Yeah, totally. Cloud computing, right? I don't have to buy the $10,000 server to start my thing. I can just go to Vercel and launch this thing for $10. Totally true. Lowered the barrier, made it easier for us all to do stuff. Payments, right? This is Stripe's 7-line implementation of payments. Like, again, made things easier for us all to do as entrepreneurs and founders. And I would argue a lot of AI is doing similar things, but I think it's also a little different. And so like all of these have enabled us to do more with less. And I think this time is different. And you might be like, yeah, it's different in ways, and maybe that's true. But I do think it's different because before, all these advancements kind of lowered the barrier and made it easier for us to do stuff. But AI, to me, is just entirely replacing jobs and roles. And if I take like a half a step back, I think that's the big existential risk to us all, is just like there's not going to be people with jobs in the medium term. And I'm going to talk about like the long term because I'm actually really bullish on the long term. But I think in the medium term, we have a rough couple of years, not because of someone vibe coding our product. Like that's a medium kind of risk. I think the risk in the next couple of years is just going to be the economy. And there's not much we can do about it. But I want us to be ready to like prepare ourselves and our businesses to weather this time. And so, does anybody remember this MicroConf? No, this is a Gemini image. But I want to, I want to see, like, talking about replacing roles. Okay, so if you've been in business for a couple of years, raise your hand if you were like hiring 2 years ago. Come on, raise them. Okay, cool. So like half, two-thirds of the room. Okay, keep them up. Keep them up. Keep your hand raised if you were hiring a year ago. Cool, like most of us. Keep your hand raised if you're hiring today. Yeah. Okay, that's a lot more than I thought, honestly. So I'm like, oh, fuck. I talked to, Leanna mentioned, like I serve as advisor in residence at Tiny Seed, where companies coming in are between like a couple $1,000 MRR to like, gosh, I don't know, 50 grand. And they just got funding, right? So they're like, I gotta go spend this money, right? Because that's the whole trade-off. It's like, hey, we're gonna give up a little equity, get a little bit of money so we can grow faster. Even within Tiny Seed, I don't talk to a lot of people who are hiring. I certainly don't talk to a lot of Tiny Seed companies that are past like a year who are hiring. And I don't talk to a lot of Bootstrapped SaaS businesses who are kind of established who are hiring right now. The comment from, Victor's not here. Victor Keller, I've known Victor a long time. He's like, why would I hire anyone anymore? Because I can do everything I need to do with AI to run my business. Does anybody like resonate with that? Yeah, like almost as many people hands that went up originally. I think that's kind of the meta theme here is like, because I feel super empowered, and like that's a good and bad thing sometimes, but I think that's like the immediate effect on kind of the economy and how we run our businesses. Okay, so I want to talk about 3, and there's probably more, but there's kind of 3 that step out to me as like immediate kind of threats to my business and probably yours. And again, I say all this like I'm not like hopefully preaching, but like I think about this all the time because like again, my family, like Castos pays our mortgage and our kids to play volleyball and stuff like that. And so I want to be really aware of this stuff. The first is probably the most obvious, right? Is that like our product just gets commoditized. And yeah, you might like roast me for saying someone can vibe code my product in a weekend. And like, yeah, they're not going to vibe code Castos or Salesforce or whatever. But I think a lot of times we know like our customers don't need all of the things that we do, right? And could they do just like this one little thing to get this one report or this one way to store a file or this one API or something? Like, yeah, like they probably could. And is that good enough to get, on the other hand, like the benefit of customization and like owning the data and kind of having control over everything? Like, heck yeah. I was talking to one of the Conversion Factory guys, and I said, like, at Castos, we charge $19 a month. So, like, first of all, don't ever start a SaaS business where you charge $19 a month. It is just, it's rough. But ChatGPT is $20 a month. Claude's $20 a month. For us to have the gall, I think, in some ways, to say we are equivalent value to the most impressive piece of software ever, I think is weird, right? Like, I don't know, like, churn hasn't really changed for us, but I think increasingly people are going like, gosh, I can do kind of like everything with Claude for $20 a month, and then I'm going to pay Castos $20 a month. I think that like the psychology is kind of changing there, especially for like new customers. And I think like we're starting to see some early signs of this and talking to some of my peers, and they're like, yeah, like churn really hasn't changed, but like new trials are dropping. That's kind of like the early sign of this, I think. And so like willingness to pay for a dedicated SaaS solution, and you see this on Twitter, right? It's like, why would I pay like $500 a month for HubSpot when I can just make this myself? Not true, right? But like not false either, I think. You could use Notion and Claude Code and Airtable or whatever and get like a good CRM that does most of what you need from HubSpot for relatively free. So I think like the perception of the value of your product changing over time is absolutely a thing we need to pay attention to. And again, I think this is what we need to hear, even if you don't like it. I think the most interesting one is your team. I'm going to talk about what we do in empowering our team to lean into AI in a minute. But I think the most interesting thing here is us getting kind of like, is the word lobotomized, where you just like go brain dead, right? I think this is a real risk, especially in kind of creative ventures. Like, hey, if all I can do is talk to Claude Code or Codex or something, like what real value do I bring as a founder or a marketer or a developer, especially for kind of non-deterministic things like marketing, right? Creative things. And then I think there's this existential threat that we all are feeling right now of like, what the heck am I doing here? If the robots can do everything, like what unique value do I bring? And what unique value does each person on my team bring when, yeah, not today, like AI can't do everything, but gosh, like think about 6 months ago, think about 3 months ago, what it was doing. And then if we kind of extrapolate forward 2 years, like where are we going to sit in all this? And then I think this is the biggest one. This is the biggest one by far. Like, I know there are products, maybe here today, that are basically a skill, right? You're like a connector for this thing, and you do this, and you transform this stuff, and then it pops out the other end. Like, I think the reality is most people have no idea what Claude Code or Codex is, and they don't know what skills are, and so they haven't caught on yet. But if your business is a skill, the frontier models, like, just deliver this already. They have enormous distribution, like literally everyone in the world uses them, and the functionality for this will be free.
Hey, Rob Walling here. If you're watching this and thinking, I wish I could be in the room for talks like this, you can and you should. So much of the magic at our events happens in the hallway track. That's where you connect with 200 to 300 like-minded founders who are trying to solve many of the same problems you are. I hope you'll join us at our next event. Head to microconf.com/events to grab your ticket. Our next one is in Iceland in September of 2026, and then we'll be in Austin in April of 2027.
So who was it that stole this slide earlier? I loved it. I was like, motherfucker, I can't believe that you asked this. So I think this is the forms brief. Was it? Yeah. This is so cool. I use FormSpree, and I use FormSpree exactly how this is described. It was suggested to me by Claude Code. I'd never heard of FormSpree before 3 weeks ago when I converted my site over, and it was like, hey, you need a way to send contact form, and you should just use FormSpree. Go here, they have a good free plan, get an API key, and give it to me. Right? So this is a graph of Stack Overflow traffic over the last, 20 years. That's not great. This is not surprising, right? This was the way that many of you learned to develop, is I'll just go to Stack Overflow and copy and paste stuff in and see how it works, and we'll kind of figure this out. Times change, right? This is not the most effective way to get value anymore. And so as a result, the market spoke, and they just get no traffic anymore. This one's super sad to me. Adam Waltham, founder of Tailwind CSS, 3 months ago, maybe, laid off 75% of their team. Very unfortunately, because the agents and the models knew the documentation of Tailwind CSS so well that no one had to go to their site. They had an 80% drop in traffic to their site, and they sold premium products or whatever. But the models and the agents were so good at implementing their free product that nobody had to upgrade to a paid plan. And Adam's a super smart guy. I know him. This is not his fault at all. And this is none of our faults. I think that's the one thing I want to say is what's happening in this transition of AI is not my fault or your fault or it's not Rob's fault even. We didn't ask for this, the good and the bad. I definitely asked for the good, but we didn't ask for the bad, which is we all are forced to reinvent ourselves, as of today. And I hope that's the one thing that you leave with is shit is going to get bad if you don't think about yourself and your business in a different way. So moving to the good way, this is, the folks at Linear are amazing. This is an image that they put out in their blog post about kind of the new version of Linear. And everybody in here uses Linear? We don't use Linear, but I know it's the cool issue tracker. We just use GitHub. But they went from we're an issue tracker that replaces GitHub issues to surrounding the entire ecosystem of agents, rules, context, and kind of that customer product feedback loop, which to me as a non-technical founder is the most important thing in SaaS, right? Listen to your customers, make the shit they want and deliver and keep doing that over and over. And they're pretty smart folks, and they're hey, why don't we just say that we are the tool that lets you do that really well? So this is an evolution, right? Of we're not an issue tracker, we're the thing that lets you deliver on the most important function of a SaaS tool, SaaS business. So that's cool. These guys are the epitome of a MicroConf type business, right? Basecamp coming out with a CLI, right? This is where the puck is going, right? Is you have to have these kinds of tools to enable your customers to get value from your product the way they want to in the future. And like Rob said, we are super early in this, and very fairly, we do not have a CLI or an MCP at Castos. Partly because we're not the kind of product that has to have this today, I don't think. Anthony, yeah, maybe we're not. We debated it as of 2 weeks ago. We think we have kind of bigger fish to fry here, but we consider putting off a very, very valuable feature to do this, and it was really close. In the end, we decided this is going to wait. But I think this has to be part of the calculus. One, for discovery, talking about FormSpree, hey, how do people find us? Increasingly, it's well, Claude Code said to use FormSpree, or Claude Code said to use Castos or SavvyCal or whatever. That's as to Amanda's talk yesterday, impressions maybe going up, but clicks are going down. I think part of that is we're just getting the answer from a different way. And if you're not showing up where that answer is generated, you're missing a big opportunity. Okay, so very early, right? When it comes to MCP and CLI and SDK and ABC, we're really early with all this stuff, but I don't think that you can ignore where this is going. Cool? I promise this is going to get better. Okay, so is it Brittany, like What a Girl Wants? Is that right? Yeah. What a girl wants. What does an agent want? What does an agent want? Context? Ooh, okay.
Agents don't want.
Okay.
Sentience.
Humans? Yeah, rent a human, right? Who would have thought we'd have a website that's like rent a human? That like, isn't that really like wrong and illegal? And okay, what does an agent want? Anybody else?
Water. Money.
Energy, water, yeah, yep. Not a really pretty website, right? Like, I hate it for the designers out there, but they want an API, right? They want clean, visible documentation. And just like pro tip, a lot of our documentation is rendered on the page in JavaScript, and agents can't read that. So if you're not like outputting your documentation as like whatever JSON or Markdown or something like that, like probably take the 5 minutes today to do that so that agents can see and index that. An MCP, CLI, or SDK. And then like they want it free. They want it free, and at most they want to like pay per outcome or something, or pay per token, or pay per usage. I think AI is overall incredibly deflationary. We're all expecting more for less money. We saw this with Hrefs. Hrefs historically is like fucking gated everything and pricing tiers and overages and stuff, and then they roll back and they're like, hey, yeah, our API is like included in every plan now. They're kind of seeing the pressure of what we all expect in a like giving more away kind of mode, and they're the market leader in their space. And so, question for everybody: like, if an agent, if my OpenClaw tries to go use your product right now, like, could it?
Yes.
Yeah, cool. That's the form spree guy. That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, for me, the answer is no, but we're working on it. So this is like, how I imagine myself, right? Like, I'm like Dumbledore, right? I'm like a wizard who can run my company from the mountains in France or a boat in the Bahamas or whatever, and we provide value, and it's like 24/7, always on. Anybody else like resonate with this a little bit? Like, developers especially, like this is like a developer to me. It's like, God, you guys are magic. Like, you guys can write code and develop products and all this kind of crazy stuff. Software developers aside, I think the playing field has been leveled a lot. I do some coaching and I work with someone here, and they sent me a message about a month ago, and they go, They had kind of just learned Claude Code. And they were like, what the fuck? Like, if I can do this, everyone else can do this. And so what do I do now? What value do I provide? How can I, and they're an incredible founder and marketer, how do I continue to add the amount of value that I used to my product when this is the new baseline? I don't know the answer, but I think that's kind of the question. And so Alex Lieberman, right, like pretty smart guy. Anyone else? Anyone like, fuck, at 30 minutes I have an existential crisis, the last 30 minutes in the last 30 years? I think we're all kind of paralyzed, right? Like, what marketing channel do I go down? What product do I develop? Do I acquire a business or not, right? Like, I think I don't know what to do. I don't have the conviction to follow this course that like I used to. And again, maybe I'm projecting a little bit here, but I talk to enough founders that like they don't know. They don't feel really good about this is definitely the course. And so if that resonates with you, like, you're not alone. But I think we'll get into how to lean into something here in a minute. So talked about moats yesterday a little bit. I think someone talked about moats, and I was like, gosh, you guys this is the curse of going last, is like everybody talks about what you're talking about. I think there's a couple moats. Maybe there's more than 4, but I think there's 4 for sure that we, especially as MicroConf founders and like mostly bootstrapped SaaS companies, can really lean into. The best is first-party proprietary data. So if your product generates data that keeps getting better and more robust and more useful over time, you're good. Like, I don't worry about you, right? So, gosh, what's an example? Anybody have an example? Is this anybody? Yeah. What do you do?
I do a ton of design research for my clients, and I gather and synthesize it among all of my other clients and make them all a bit stronger in the process.
Cool. So if anybody didn't hear, like, design research for a bunch of different clients, and you're building this kind of library of like what great design looks like. Yeah, totally. So you have first-party data, across a bunch of different experiences that you can apply to all your clients. That's cool. Anybody else? Example of first-party data that you're generating? Yeah, Keith, Segmetrics, right? Yep. So Segmetrics is marketing attribution tool. So I think you have proprietary data on two levels. One is like platform level. All of your customers, you see a whole bunch of stuff. Like, this is where people like, Stripe and ChartMogul can tell us how good or bad our businesses are. Like, that's really valuable. And you in a similar way. And then each of your clients have their first party data that's valuable to them, right? And that keeps getting better and more valuable over time the more they use your product. Yeah, that's really cool. This is where, like, we win, right? Castos wins here. We are a system of record. We're a podcast hosting platform. If you want a podcast, you got to have something like Castos. And if you cancel with us, your podcast goes away. So if you're, a CRM, as much as that's like a bad example, like if you're the source of truth where like this is where like our data for our company lives, I think you're good. And because of this, I think these are harder to vibe code. Because like if you vibe code this and get this wrong, like the data that you think you have about your company is wrong. And then it's not the source of truth, it's just a source of garbage. And so that's one. I think especially for this crowd, this is a super interesting one, is speed. I'm much more bullish about the people in this room with SaaS and AI. I don't want to keep using HubSpot as an example, but like a legacy, big, frankly bloated piece of software, right? They just can't move as fast as you can to AIify yourself and your team and your product and your company. And so being able to move fast, not having to report your decisions to a whole bunch of people, and keeping that product customer feedback loop really, really super tight is maybe the universal advantage that everyone in this room has that you should really lean into. And then like, yeah, hey, what if my next customer is an agent and not a human? Well, like that's one thing. But the other thing is like if you're selling to the enterprise, which like increasingly I think that's where SaaS should go. Again, like don't start a SaaS where you charge $20 a month. If you're charging thousands of dollars a month, your ACV is 50 grand or something like that, people always have bought from people, and they will always buy from people. And maybe even more so, this relationship between you and someone else is paramount. Agents aren't going to decide to buy a $50,000 a year piece of software. It's going to be you. And so, like, leaning into sales, I think, is a really interesting avenue to continue to succeed in SaaS. Okay, so I want to, like, another show of hands, like, how many of you feel good about how your team is using AI? Oh, cool. Okay, a little of this, right? And not, like, really high. Okay, cool. I don't do a lot of things right, but like, we fucking nailed this. Like, our team is cracked, super Claude-pilled. They're amazing. And so I want to share what we're doing. Okay, so, and I think, like, to take a step back, this has to start with you. It can't be like, oh, our developer is going to, have their development team, like, use all these codes and develop all these best practices. Like, even if you're not a technical founder, which, like, I'm not, you have to lead by example. Like, I always want to be the dumbest person in the room in our company, and a lot of times, like, I am. But in this respect, I led the charge. And I think you have to. You have to set the culture of excellence here And like, we're not messing around. Like, this is how it's going. And I'm going to talk about some really challenging times we had. But you have to get this right, and y'all have to lead this. You can't be like, okay, I'm going to appoint like a head of AI in our company. Even if you do that, that person's not going to take you seriously if you yourself aren't fluent and proficient at these tools. Okay? So in our company, we're 7 people full-time. Everyone has Claude Code, support, product, marketing, certainly development. Everyone uses it all the time. We have a team meeting every Monday, all 7 hands. Every time it's like, hey, I was playing around with this new MCP over the weekend, and we like built this new tool. Hey, I was looking at this API for this other thing we could do. It's really cool. Like, I built this script that we can run to get this report. And it's because that's the expectation. I led by example for a painful amount of time, being the person that y'all make fun of. Like, oh my gosh, Craig's going to talk about AI again and how great it is, and oh my God, let's just roll our eyes. I did that for long enough, and we had some positive peer pressure in the room to where they were like, oh, I probably should like catch up, or like I'm going to get fired. And that was the conversation a couple times. We have an unlimited budget for AI. I can't imagine telling someone that you pay $100,000 a year that they can't upgrade their Claude plan from $100 to $200 a month. I just can't imagine that, right? And we're going to talk about what the kind of bigger companies are doing around this in a minute. We have the expectation, not the allowance, but the expectation that everyone spend at least 2 hours a week learning. And they're like, well, where would I learn? I'm like, you can watch my YouTube channel. Because it's frankly like really good. But if you don't watch mine, like watch somebody's around like the area where you want to like learn. Because you have to keep learning because this stuff changes so fast. I was like, just before this, like they're going to release Opus 4.7 like tomorrow, and then OpenAI has GPT 5.4 security, which is kind of their answer to Mythos, I guess. But like literally it changes all the time. I was talking to someone about Paperclip, and I was like, gosh, like I'm in this all day, every day, and I have a hard time keeping up. But if you, as a leader, don't set the expectation with your teams that they have to keep up with this stuff, there's no way that they will. And so this has to start at the top and then come down. So we have 2 standing meetings in our company. One is like our Monday all hands, and then we do this thing called co-working, which is just like hanging out on Thursday, but hanging out turned into what we did this morning in the lobby, which was tell me what you learned or show me what you did with AI this week. And this does something really interesting. So the first time this happens, you got a couple of people who show up and stuff, and then I call on someone. I'm like, hey, Jimmy, what'd you do this week? Oh, I don't know, like not much. Jimmy, next week, that cannot be the answer. Like, you got to show up. You have to show me what you've learned and how you are furthering yourself to be able to do your job better in the future. And like, this just has to happen. And I think this is where you guys know the term like right person in the right seat. Yeah. What's the traction guy? I was having this conversation with one of you this week that like you're like, hey, I'm super on board, like I'm Claude pilled, but my development team is not, and I'm having to explain stuff to them. And this was a non-technical founder. Person was like, do I have like a people problem here? I was like, fuck yeah, you have a people problem. Like, that is not okay. And we had several of these conversations with our team. And the lesson or the kind of the question that you always should ask yourself in hiring, I got this from Ruben Gomez. Ruben's like one of the smartest founders I know. Follow him on Twitter. Is knowing what I know today, would I hire this person again? So I ask myself that of everyone on my team as it relates to AI. Knowing what I know now, would I hire this person again in the kind of AI world that we live in? And the answer was about 50-50. Yes and no. And so I just told them that. Like, it doesn't have to be any more complicated than that. Hey, Jimmy, I'll use Jimmy as an example. He's like the most amazing human, and he started off like, this is just not, I'm not going to do this. And I was like, bro, like, you got to get on board. Like, I love you, but like, to work here, you have to participate like this. or you can't work here anymore. And since he's the biggest transformation in our company. And so if y'all have those folks who are like, oh, I'm too good to use Claude Code to write code because I'm an artist on the keyboard, like that person has no place in my business and probably shouldn't in yours either. And so, right person in the right seat doing the right job had a meaning 6 months ago and I think has a different meaning and context today. And so y'all as leaders might need to have challenging conversations with your team. Right on, thanks man. I thought y'all were asleep. Okay, cool. So 200 companies in Tiny Seed, 200 founders in Tiny Seed. Get to talk to a lot of them about what they're doing. You know, just as a side note, I have 9 minutes left. Like, we're going to go over, I think. I hope that's okay. We'll still get to the bar, but we might go over a bit. It's the beauty of going last. So what other Tiny Seed companies are doing? This is a bit rapid fire. So hired an AI native engineering manager. I like this a lot because it's like, hey, we had this job before of like engineering manager. Really kind of tough job, I think. Now it's like, how can I pill my developers as much as possible and get them just token maxing as much as possible, right? This is this person's job. I love it, right? We had this other job before. Now we have the new version of this job. I think there's a lot of that going on. Automated like task audits, right? If something happens more than a couple of times, we're going to automate this because now everyone is empowered to do so much around like I'm going to build a script or I'm going to build a little tool or I'm going to automate this thing or I'm going to get this thing in Claude Code or OpenClaw or whatever, right? This should be happening to everyone, not just your developers, right? Because the developers are super good at like, oh, if I have to do this thing, I'm going to build a bash script to like automate it in the future. Now everyone can do this, which is a huge unlock because then it's multiplying exponentially. Is that a thing, multiplying? It's happening exponentially. Token consumption. Brandon here, right? The expectation is your engineers should be consuming 60% of their token quota in a week or month. Yeah, like, bro, what are you doing? Like, I wonder sometimes, like, what are my developers doing if they're not maxing out their $200 a month plan? Because I can max mine out, and I spend like a couple hours a day futzing around with this stuff. What are they doing to not be asking for like $1,000 a month quota? I don't know. They should be maxing it out all the time. This is kind of similar to our weekly kind of show and tell. 2-minute demo of a thing that you did. This can be like a skill or an open source thing that you did or a way that you're doing like Codex and Claude Code like review, or it can be whatever, right? Like how this happens in your business can be different, but you should be doing it. This positive peer pressure is hugely transformative, I think, in instilling the culture of kind of like AI excellence. I like this kind of like cross-functional squads. Like we've kind of always done this, and now it just has an AI flavor, right? So like pick a thing, have a couple people just go super hard on this for a period of time, and then share what they did with everyone else. Gosh, this one's pretty tough. We definitely don't have this nailed. The way that we do this most of the time is we just publish our stuff open source, and so everyone can kind of keep track of it. But like, how do you share prompts and workflows and skills amongst your company in a way that's like consistent and not like getting in the way? And I know like if you're on the Anthropic team plan, you can share skills and stuff like that, but not everybody's in that boat. So like have a way to do this. However you achieve it, I think is important. Talking about token maxing, evidently at Meta, they have like a whole leaderboard around this, right? Like how can I spend the most tokens possible? This is where, like, again, y'all roast me for being so, like, into this stuff. This is directionally right, I think. Like, yeah, do you want to, like, use the most tokens possible? Like, maybe that's not exactly, like, proper, but do you want this culture of, like, I did this thing with AI, and it's awesome, and I want to show y'all about it? Like, that's definitely right to me. Jensen Huang, founder of, or CEO of NVIDIA, we definitely don't have $500,000 a year developers, but I think the gist here is right? If your developers aren't maxing out their plans and asking for more, you got a problem. And I would take this a step further, not just developers, but like if you have a salesperson or a marketing person or an ops person and you haven't given them Claude Code yet, and they're not banging down your door, I would fire them, like literally today. Because it's like, what are you doing? Like if you're working for a SaaS company and you're kind of plugged into, even if it's LinkedIn, and you don't know about this stuff and you haven't tried, Claude Coworker or whatever, and they're not asking you for more access to tools like this, that's a person problem. And to me, that's like an irrecoverable person problem. That's a person that just doesn't care, to me. I think a talk on AI would be incomplete without talk of OpenClaw. Anybody using OpenClaw in their business? Not a lot of hands. Yeah, cool. I want to talk to y'all afterwards. OpenClaw, everybody know what OpenClaw is? Yeah, cool. So I think the thing that OpenClaw and now Hermes, which is kind of my tool of choice here, did is take us from I'm at my computer doing a thing and I have AI that's really cool, Claude Code or Codex, right, to this thing is always on, it's proactive, it can work on a schedule, it does things with inputs that are not me. So Peter Steinberger, right, sold OpenClaw to Sam Altman and OpenAI for $1 billion probably, right? Like pretty cool, first $1 billion company, a single person $1 billion company probably. Not an amazing, sort of an amazing product, but much more of an amazing mindset shift, I think, for all of us, right? Like Claude Code, still my daily driver and the place I derive most value when it comes to AI. But if you fast forward 3 months now, you see Anthropic adding little bits of what OpenClaw is to their suite of products, right? Remote control, dispatch, right? All these kinds of things. And sure enough, like the final form that I think this will take is the Codex app or the Claude app doing things that OpenClaw did. So again, Jensen saying every company needs an OpenClaw strategy or an agentic strategy. Does everybody feel like they have a strategy around this? Like for customers or for your team to be empowered with agents? Sweet, awesome. 1. I don't. 2, cool, awesome. Yeah? Awesome. We're getting there. And I want to share something that like I do, but this is one place like we've not rolled this out to our team. But if you think about like amplification of someone's skills, like surely figuring this out for your team members, not just your customers, is the next like huge leverage point. So the place where I'm kind of doing this right now is for myself. So I call this my chief of staff. I hope the QR code works. If not, let me know. But this is a chief of staff set of skills and setup for Hermes. So Hermes was like the previous slide, is a thing like OpenClaw, but it doesn't suck to me, right? It doesn't break. It's way more secure. It's run by a research lab, so they're like kind of, not just vibe coding. Well, they're probably vibe coding, but like they're doing it better. The thing I like about Hermes better than OpenClaw is the memory. It's amazing. It learns by itself and has kind of self-improving memory over time. It's awesome. So my chief of staff here is like what a chief of staff should do, right? It clears my calendar. It checks and categorizes my inbox. And like then you build on top of it. And so that's kind of the goal of this repo is like, hey, this is a starting point. Get you 2 steps down the road and then build as you will from here. Is this like resonant? Oh man, I got a minute left. Sorry, we're going over. Does this seem like anyone's company today? This is like a lot of ways, this is my company. Like you got Amplitude over here, you got Surge Columns over here, you got analytics in this place and that place, and none of them talk to each other. And I think that like if you're gonna take one thing away from this, it should be this concept. So like this is life today because this is kind of like as good as we could do, right? We have all these disparate tools in a bunch of different places and like they don't talk. And that's challenging. But that's like, gosh, we're so fortunate to have all these amazing tools, many of which are free, right, or cheap. But like, this is the vision. This is like where you want your company to go to be AI powered. I think where you want your company and your product to go to be AI powered, where you have all of the inputs, right? All of the data about your customer and where they come from and what they're doing in your product and how they're interacting with it and getting value. And then you do AI stuff with that information and you deliver a better value to your customer on the other side. And honestly, that's where we are in our company, is we're ripping out kind of everything about how data flows and how we relate that data and value to our customers and putting it in a place where we can AIify everything that we do for our customers. Because you think about, like, here's a really specific example. It's just like your website, right? So your website's in WordPress, right? And you're like, gosh, I'm going to write a blog post over here in Claude Code, and I'm going to copy and paste it into WordPress, and then I'm going to go to Google Analytics and see how that did, and then I got to look at Search Console, and then I got to look at like Stripe to see like how many people converted and stuff, and like if you can do all that and like make sense of it, that's amazing. But what if like all of that was in one Claude Code project, and you just be like, hey, tell me about my customer acquisition from the last 30 days and how we can improve it. And it would do a really good job, I think. Like you might need to write it to SQLite or something like that. But this is where, again, like that product customer feedback loop allows for rapid iteration and testing and better measurement, I think, for everything that you do in your company. And so something like this probably needs to be where most of us are going to interact with the things that we create for our customers in a better way. Okay, so this is where the talk gets better. I'm actually really bullish on the future. There's an asterisk to that, but I'm really bullish on this. I think that OpenClaw, is it hyperbolic? Changed the world. It changed how we think about what AI can be from I sit at my computer in ChatGPT and like ping pong mentally back and forth to like, this doesn't happen, right? It's like Napster, right? Like Napster was not the final version of what music sharing is, but it changed how we think about it. And I think OpenClaw is the same, right? I think agents doing work and providing value for us to our customers is absolutely happening and will continue to happen, and I'm super bullish about it. And this is the thing that tipped the scales and started us going in that direction. I think agent-to-agent commerce absolutely is happening and will continue to happen in the future. And you should probably be one side of this conversation, right? Is SaaS dead? Kind of. I think even Rob kind of alluded to this, right? Like in your Q&As, like, gosh, like I'm not, like, this isn't really SaaS. It's like an API tool. Like some SaaSes are kind of just API tools, but like, is the value we're going to deliver to our customers just agentic and just programmatic in the future? And there's no interface. Like, yeah, I think so in some circumstances. And so if you're not thinking like, how can I be the guy on the left here to where other agents like OpenClaw and whatever is going to come in the future, that's where I worry about myself, and like you might should too, because I think that like the way we deliver value through software will be through agents, or whatever form agents take in the future. But it's probably not an interface where people go to a website and type things into a form. Vertical, way over horizontal. That's pretty easy. I think the reason here is this is just so much more defensible, right? You have subject matter expertise in a way that makes it harder for other people to replicate the value that you deliver. Open weight models, open source models. Anyone running open weight models, open source models? Cool, awesome. This has gotten a lot better, like in the last, 3 weeks, right? Qwen 3.5 and 3.6, Gemma 4, they're really good. Like, I would say, y'all again, roast me afterwards, Gemma 4 is like haiku right now. Really good. If you're just like, hey, I'm going on vacation to Italy this summer, give me a 5-day itinerary, way plenty good. 90% of the things 90% of people do, you can do with open weight models today. And so as y'all are thinking about like, I'm gonna AIFI my company, but gosh, like every time I introduce AI to my product, like my costs and my COGS increase. Well, not necessarily, right? Get you some GPU or run this on a server somewhere. Zero cost, 100% data privacy, right? If you have Harris taught, people saying like, I don't want my data going anywhere. Cool, like local finally is an option here, and things like TurboQuant from Google, which like compresses the memory needed by some of these models by 6 times, really kind of opens the playing field for this to be possible. I'm getting a robot. I don't know about y'all. Like, I'm about a year away from doing the dishes and laundry and like mowing the grass. This is what I tell my kids, right? This is what I tell my kids. They both are very kind of like, I know I'm over time, I'm sorry. I'm almost done. Robotics is 100% where the puck is going, right? AI is going to leave the computer and going into things that we do, and this is where I get super excited about like the future. And so, if we want to take a step back and like get some perspective here, I think like it's not as negative as maybe I made it out to be, but I don't hear anyone else like gut checking us. So I want to really like give us some perspective here. I absolutely think the future will be amazing, right? It's going to be like Wakanda, right? Like everything is going to be free, basically. We're going to have food and medicine and resources and infrastructure in ways that like we can't imagine today, right? Because imagine like there's been a one-person billion-dollar company probably already. Like that was unthinkable 6 months ago. And so with the pace of change that all of this is happening, 100%, like we are all going to be better off in a few years. There's no doubt in my mind. And it's those few years that are the challenge, right? It's these next couple of years where we're going to get through the transition of like the conventional economy to like where things are going and the panacea I think that we're all going to be in. And so we have to survive, right? And I got to talk about like Project Glasswing because like I think this is where this could all fall apart for us, right? Is like we all run software companies and things like the Mythos model that, supposedly are going to like, find all these exploits in our software could be like very bad for us as software companies. And so I think that like we have to stay aware of like the negative potential when it comes to bad actors using AI to do really bad things with our companies. And so like I'll wrap it up here. So MicroConf founders have kind of 3 things that we should be doing. 1, move really fast, right? Shipping it, testing all the time. 2, like stay in your lane and niche down as much as you can, I think. And then like leverage the humanness and relationships that you have and can have as founders, right? Getting on calls as the founder with your customers is something that no one else can do. And so if y'all are like, this is cool, I want to like keep having this conversation. I'm doing a 3-day, I'll call it a challenge, like where I talk in more depth about what I'm doing at my company to get us ready for the next few years. This is free. I have absolutely nothing to sell you. But you can sign up. We're going to do it on Zoom over 3 days next week. It'd be cool to have you all there. I can share a little bit more about what I'm doing and give us kind of frameworks for how you can set your company and yourselves up to win over the next couple of years.
I've been running MicroConf for more than a decade, and the thing I hear from attendees more than anything else is I wish I'd come sooner. Not because of any single talk or tactic, but because they finally found their people. Founders who get it. Founders who are building the same way they are. At our events, it's not just about the talks. In Portland, we organized waterfall hikes, food tours, happy hours, real time with other founders outside the sessions. And those relationships don't end when the event does. They turn into the people you text when something breaks or when something finally works. If you've been thinking about coming, I hope you'll join us in Iceland and Austin. Get your tickets at microconf.com/events. If you got something out of that talk, make sure you hit subscribe. We're putting out more of these every week. And that wasn't the only great talk from Portland. Go watch this one next.